Here she is. Gonna be thrown away. Don't you want to sit right there? Yeah. Man, it's so brittle. I don't think we're gonna save this guy. Gotta get it all off. Oh my gosh. That's the red color it used to be. Wow. Very sun faded. Gotta just take this all the way back to the fiberglass and get it all cleaned up. Just took up this back floor panel for the first time and seeing the stringers for the first time. Fiberglass, or at least fiberglass coated, but they look like they're in really good shape. Woo! That's a win. Chasing wires. Trying to figure out where all this stuff. It's like a tangle of wire that was sitting down the bottom. It says Airmar. I'm not sure what this thing is for. Any thoughts? Would be very helpful. Thank you. It was on the center one next to this blue guy.
Oh.
Carburetor coming off. Trying to thread it out of there. There we go. Oh. Man, look at that. That doesn't look too bad.
It doesn't.
Damn it. I can get that out of there. backrest. bottom panel is what goes on the boat, and I got new slides, but they already had these holes, so I was just using those. But the hole pattern on the bottom of the seat was a 5x5. You can see they don't match up, so built this piece of wood. So that gets a little height off the bottom. We get the 5x5 holes that go there, and then this thing mounts to the bottom of here. So the wood is kind of bridging the gap between this hole pattern and that hole pattern. So let's assemble it and see what it looks like. This stuff is what I've been using to recondition the plastic, and boy, it works great. I highly recommend picking up some of that. These things are like, I'm worried it's gonna like flop. So if you, now we're gonna walk towards the bow. And then come towards me, and we'll just set it down.
afternoon. oil just to make it less big. And then, yeah, you can see right there, like this should be pretty straight, but it like kind of went like that. And now there was like a big kind of bubbly bunch sticking out right there. So I just need to straighten that out.
Because it's a whole thing. Well, crap, it's okay.
Let's see if this works. It's a little like. So strange to fill up a boat on the side.
Woo, it's free.
Look at that!
It floats.
Okay, Todd. Back up. It's in the boat.
Back up first. Woohoo!
I'm not sure what is more handsome, you or the boat.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Oh my gosh. That's good.
time.